Israel's deadly strike on aid workers in Gaza is a new blow to humanitarian efforts. 7 people, including a Canada-U.S. dual citizen, were killed after delivering food to starving Palestinians. The aid workers were with World Central Kitchen, the charity now saying it's immediately pausing operations in the region. While Israel says the strike was an accident, it's not easing the anger from world leaders. Images of the aftermath of the Israeli strike in Gaza show 3 cars clearly marked with World Central Kitchen destroyed. They were left heavily damaged and charred. Footage showed the workers' bodies, several wearing protective gear with the charity's logo at a hospital in central Gaza. The vehicles were traveling on a route pre-approved and coordinated with the Israeli army after delivering 100 tons of food.
We've impressed upon the Israelis the absolute imperative of doing more to protect innocent civilian lives, be they Palestinian children, women, and men, or be they aid workers.
The 7 aid workers included a U.S.-Canada dual citizen and citizens of Australia, Poland, and the United Kingdom. Some have been identified, like Damian Sobel of Poland and Palestinian driver Saif Abu Taha, along with Zomi Frankum of Australia, her friends sharing photos and stories of her life today.
People like Zomi are so selfless and only doing what they do because of their love for humanity. There's no other reason. Zomi worked at a bank before she became a humanitarian. This is only something people do because they have a calling for service. And it makes me feel like humanity has reached a new low.
To say world leaders are concerned by the strike is an understatement.
It is absolutely unacceptable that aid workers were killed by the Israeli Defense Force. This is something that never should have happened. We obviously need full accountability and investigation in this. There needs to be clarity on how this happened.
They need to be allowed to do that work unhindered, and it's incumbent on Israel to make sure that they can do that, and we're asking Israel to investigate what happened urgently, because clearly there are questions that need to be answered.
Officials in the United States, a country that has provided key military and diplomatic support for Israel's war against Hamas in Gaza, have also been outspoken today.
We were outraged to learn of an IDF strike that killed a number of civilian humanitarian workers yesterday from the World Central Kitchen, which has been relentless in working to get food to those who are hungry in Gaza and, quite frankly, around the world. More than 200 aid workers have been killed in this conflict, making it one of the worst for aid workers in recent history.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu quick to respond.
Unfortunately, in the last day, there was a tragic incident where our forces unintentionally struck innocent people in the Gaza Strip. It happens in war, and we are thoroughly investigating it.
Netanyahu adding that officials are investigating and that they will do everything for this not to happen again.
I think it's appalling tragedy is proof, as if we needed it, of the incredible dangers that exist involved in delivery of humanitarian aid inside Gaza, a point that we've been making for months.
World Central Kitchen's work was key to a recently opened sea route that offered some hope for northern Gaza. The United Nations says much of the area's population is on the brink of starvation, largely cut off from the rest of the territory by Israeli forces.
It demonstrates yet again the urgent need for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire, the unconditional release of all hostages, and the expansion of humanitarian aid into Gaza, as the Security Council demanded in its resolution last week.
South Africa has accused Israel of acts of genocide in its war in Gaza and filed a case in the United Nations highest court. Charges Israel strongly denies. Joining us now is Jane Boulden, professor at the Royal Military College of Canada. Jane, can you walk us through Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's stance that this was unintentional? How can that be? Could they really be that careless?
So either 2 things happened. One is that it was a complete mistake, that somebody in the situation reading, through the various satellite images and so on, the travel of various vehicles, misread the situation and assumed it was something else, and that's the source of the issue. Or somebody made their own decision, which they shouldn't have, to target it anyway. So the speed of Netanyahu's response and the determination in his words that this was a mistake suggest that he recognizes and the government recognizes the significance of this, and also suggests that it probably was one of those two things I described, either a true error or somebody who will later be punished who made a decision for themselves.
Do you see this as a tipping point for Israel with so many international aid workers killed from Canada, the UK, Australia? What will the fallout look like for Netanyahu when it comes to allied support?
It's likely to have an impact. I don't know whether it'd be a tipping point. It's in this conflict that is so hard to read. Like, when are we going to get the tipping point? Because there have been moments before this where you thought it might be that. So it's nonetheless going to have an impact. Other countries are going to be stronger now in their pushback against Netanyahu and the Israeli government more broadly in the way in which they're carrying out this war. There's already strong pushback, but I think we will see a difference now. The question is whether that will have any impact. And so far, there's no reason to think it will. Netanyahu has been, especially in these last few weeks, it's been really clear that even significant criticism and disapproval from its strongest ally, the U.S., doesn't change his course. So I'm not sure that it would, even though, in this case, even though we are likely to see a stronger response. I think one of the, very, very sadly, one of the other knock-on effects is going to be on the part of aid organizations who have been operating there, who quite rightly are going to say, if we can't rely on coordinating with Israeli military about our movements, then we can't operate. That is already, we're already seeing that with a few organizations, and I think the question now is whether we'll see it happening with more.
You know, Jane, it's also leading to a theory of starvation. Is this part of their plan? Because we know aid trucks are not getting into Gaza at levels that they should be.
It's a very fair question, and it's an important one. And it links back to your previous question about the extent and nature of the response from other actors in the international system, not just government, but non-government as well, including other actors like, say, the International Court of Justice, who've already been on this issue. Because, as you say, it does feed into the bigger picture of concern about whether there isn't a broad, I hate to say, strategy on the part of Israel to engage in a siege, in effect, and to bring about a form of pressure through starvation, and not just starvation, but all the destruction of the medical facilities. And, there are other aspects to that whole idea of punishing the population as a way of trying to bring about change, or as a way just of punishing them. And so whether or not it's the case that this was part of the strategy, it will raise the question about Israeli intentions broadly, because we have, as you indicated, already seen, they're doing everything they can to resist allowing aid trucks through while following all the things they've agreed to. They just maximize the slowdown, right, and minimize the amount that gets through. Now, of course, they would say, we're doing that for our own protection, and it's for everybody's well-being. We need to be sure that what's going through doesn't include weapons and so on. But there are ways of doing that is faster than this. And that's raised everybody's level of suspicion.
Well, sadly, this war between Israel and Hamas does not appear to be slowing down. Jane, thank you so much for joining us tonight on Trending Now.
Thank you for having me.